Hey folks, about half an hour before I should probably start working from home, so I'm just gonna make some waffles with strawberries really quick. Um, let's see. I make waffles for breakfast a lot because they're pretty quick to cook, and you can start eating them even before the last one's done. So they're a pretty good staple at this household. So I got a waffle iron. It's a great waffle iron. My wife got it for me for my birthday. I think the year that we started dating a while back. And it's great. It does a flippy thing. It's got deep wells, nonstick. I love it. So then let's start mixing the ingredients. We've got the flour here. We got our bowl. What else are we gonna need? Our extra light tasting olive oil. So you're getting the olive oil flavor in your waffles. We're gonna need baking powder. We're gonna need some soy milk or almond milk or whatever. I don't think what brand you use matters at all. Get this silk almond, and I make this recipe every day. Well, not every day, but I make it every week probably, and I still don't have it memorized. I'm getting out of my mom and dad's cookbook, vegan family cookbook. It's got lots of great recipes like this if you just need a vegan waffle recipe or whatever. This is a great one to go. Let me double check the ingredients. Flour, baking powder, vinegar, right. So we got our flour, we got our vinegar, we got our soy milk. Let's start mixing it up. It's really quick. So I'm going to make a 2/3 batch, which splits really nicely for this recipe. And there's just two of us in the house, and if I make a 2/3 batch, it'll make about 4 waffles, and we'll usually eat like 1.5 each. So instead of 3 cups of flour, I'll do 2 cups of flour. Just using this generic white flour. I grew up eating, my parents would always put like at least 50% whole wheat flour into all the baked goods that they make. And I don't, because it tastes better. Maybe it's a little bit less healthy, but I figure that's an okay sacrifice. I'll try to be healthier in some other way, like being vegan, for example. Alright, now it calls for 2 tablespoons of baking powder and 1 tablespoon egg replacer, which is also why I split this in 2/3, because a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, so anything that's in tablespoons you can do in thirds really easily. I ran out of egg replacer a little while ago, and I haven't bought any more since. And I know that my dad, when he makes waffles and he doesn't have egg replacer, he'll just use more baking powder. So I did that last time, and he said it worked. And so I've done it a couple times now. It seems to work fine. So then instead we're going to do 4 tablespoons of baking powder goes down to 2 tablespoons baking powder is 4 teaspoons if you make it 2/3 of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it calls for a tablespoon of egg replacer powder. So I'm just going to do 2 more teaspoons of the baking powder, which just ends up being 2 tablespoons like it kind of called for. Then it's going to call for a teaspoon of salt, so we'll do roughly 2/3 of a teaspoon of salt. Yeah, that looks about right. And then the soy milk and the olive oil and the vinegar. So I'm going to grab my whisk. I like this whisk. It's got a nice rubber handle, but this prong keeps coming out. And you can like slot it back in. So I should buy a new whisk, or I should just be able to solder this wire in so that it's stuck to the ones next to it. So maybe that'll be a hobby if I'm unemployed for some time. I'll maybe fix this whisk. Anyway, we'll just whisk this up. And then we're going to add our liquid ingredients. So you always add your dry ingredients first to make sure that they're well mixed. That way you don't have like clumps of your baking powder that stick together when you add the wet ingredients or things like that. Then we'll do 1/3 of a cup of extra light olive oil, or in this case 2/3 of 2/3. So I'm just going to wing it. It's like a 1/4-ish cup. Doesn't really matter if you're too precise in the oil. It's just going to change the consistency a little bit, but it's not going to affect really how it's going to bake. That's more driven by the water content. Then I'm going to add so this recipe calls for vinegar, which is going to react with baking soda. That's part of the baking powder, because baking powder actually has baking soda in it. And everybody's done their high school or probably elementary school volcano experiment where they foam up. So I usually don't add that till the end, because I don't want it sort of like concentrated vinegar on the dry ingredients foaming up right away. So I'd rather add all the soy milk first. So it calls for 3 cups normally, so I'm going to do 2 cups because it's a 2/3 batch. And then it calls for vanilla. Which I don't put in because it takes like a ton of vanilla. This recipe calls for a whole tablespoon of vanilla, so that's like it's like $1 or something for your vanilla, and I don't really feel like adding that much. And then the flavor doesn't really come out because they're waffles. I'm going to put like maple syrup and strawberries and stuff on it. Alright, so now I'll add our vinegar. 2/3 teaspoon of that because it called for 1 teaspoon. And we will, see my whisk came apart. You know what? I'm just going to leave it. It's fine. Let's start whisking this up. I've been experimenting lately trying to figure out how much you should mix your ingredients when they're in a batter form. So even like people are used to kneading dough, and when you knead dough, you're sort of developing these long gluten strands that are going to really add that bread-like texture to your dish. But you can also do that just by mixing your a batter that's like a lot less thick. You can actually still develop that gluten, and it'll get more and more viscous the more you mix, and it's going to change the texture. So some recipes call for you to just mix barely, just like until it's just wet, because they don't want you to develop any of that chewy texture. And then some recipes want you to like mix it a bunch. Like my mom's cake recipe, you put it in a stand mixer and you mix it thoroughly for like a while. So for waffles, I've never really gone too far one way or the other, but I've been kind of experimenting lately on seeing how the texture changes if you go towards either extreme, because there has to be an optimum, and I'm not sure what it is for waffles to have the right mouthfeel. Alright, so that's all mixed up, so put this away. So now I'll put it into the waffle iron. I like this waffle iron because it like flips down, kind of like, one that you would see in like a dorm or a restaurant when you're making your own waffles. I sort of pour it out. I like to have a thicker waffle batter than a thinner waffle batter because I think it gets you a crispier final waffle, which I like. But as such, it doesn't like flow as much in the waffle iron. So I usually pre-spread it out a little bit as I pour it. I really like this one. So yeah, it like flips over. So now it's going to coat the other side of the waffle iron and get like a fluffier waffle, because it doesn't have to do all that rising action just through the gas generation. So I'm going to set a timer for this. So I do 4 minutes. Well, actually, I'm going to do 3 minutes. The last time I made waffles, they all came out overcooked a little bit. And I always do 4 minutes with this waffle iron, but I think maybe it's starting to show its age, and maybe its temperature control isn't quite as good as it used to be. And it's cooking things a little bit faster, which is fine. I'll just adjust. So I think 3 minutes is the way to go now. So now we're going to do the strawberries. Here are the strawberries. These look pretty good when we were at the store. They're pretty good. Prep them a bit. Get a cutting board out. Get like a strainer so I can wash them after I prep them a little bit. So I'm going to do a quick pre-wash here. Yeah, these look really good. When I buy strawberries at the store, I'm looking for the signs. I think the best ones that I can usually find are if you get small ones, smaller strawberries that are uniformly like a deep red. I think those give you the best flavor. I think if you get ones that are too big, they've just been sitting on the vine too long and they're sort of lose some of the concentration of the flavor. And then, if they're too white, they haven't really turned fully red yet, then they also haven't ripened all the way. So I'm just going to cut off the leaves a little bit, which I suppose you could eat. If I was doing a smoothie, I would just put them right in, but for my waffles, I don't. Let's see. And the other thing when I'm looking for strawberries is make sure you look at the bottom of the carton when you buy the strawberries, because that's where the strawberries are going to be sitting under the weight of the other strawberries and pressed up against the bottom. And that's also where the moisture, if they were too wet when they got packaged and they didn't dry off, where it collects. So that's probably where you're going to see mold, if there is mold, the most. And then, you might see some strawberries like this, which are a little bit bruised. And I'll usually poke it a little bit, see if it's soft. We've got a lot of strawberries. I'm just going to cut off this little section that's a little bit bruised. As you can see, that was one of the strawberries from the bottom, and it didn't get the best. It didn't survive as well as the other strawberries. Let's see. I heard my timer beep on the oven, so we only got 30 seconds left on this waffle. There it is. So I'll turn that off. And when I pull waffles out, I put them on a wire rack, which does, the important thing for the wire rack is normally you put them on a wire rack so they can cool nicely on both sides. But in the case of waffles, if you put it down on a plate, this feels about right. I think 3 minutes is the way to go. If you put waffles just down on a plate, there's a ton of steam still coming off the waffles, and it's going to get trapped in those little the holes in the waffle that are facing the plate. It's just going to make the bottom of your waffle soggy. So if you put it on a wire rack, you're going to keep your waffle more crisp until you're serving it. Second waffle in, restart the timer. And what I'll usually do here is I'm making 4 waffles, but the last 2 I make will be the ones that we actually start off with for breakfast so that they're the freshest. But, I have those on a rack so they're going to stay crispy, and you can always microwave them for a second if you want them to be a little warmer, but they're usually fine. Let's see. Yeah, these look pretty good. I think there's only one slightly dubious one that we took care of. And they're all pretty red and nice. I look at the insides too to see how red the insides are. I think these are going to be fine. It's not, what you don't want is for it to be just a red shell with a ton of unripened berry in the inside, at least as far as I can tell. That makes a difference. I wish I had my larger cutting board, but I have it in the sink right now to be washed in the dishwasher. Been using the sterilization temperature on our dishwasher just to be extra cautious lately. Let's see. That's at that time, right? Yep. I think I set it for 4 minutes, though, because I'm so used to setting it to 4 minutes instead of 3. So, the strawberry tops in there. All right. So now, I'm going to just get a bowl. I don't actually need this. I've got a bowl. I'll start to slice these up. So I'm just going to do them in little triangles. I think that works out well. Once you start cutting up your strawberries, you kind of need to eat them because they're just going to get softer and slimier over time, but that's okay. We can eat a lot of strawberries, and if there's any ones that are a little bit less good later on, either just freeze them, keep forever, or just throw them in a smoothie. That's usually what I do if I have extra fruit that's a little bit on the sadder side, but still edible. You won't notice the texture in a smoothie. Also, if my parents are listening, good luck on the job interview this afternoon. I can't tell who's online. I see that there's 2 people. Or interview this morning, actually. Let's see. This is probably the most laborious part of making the waffles, but you can do it while they're cooking, so you can get these prepped real quick. So I started at like 8:30. It's like 8:50 now. So you can make, a nice fresh breakfast with some fresh fruit in like 20 minutes. So I like to do that. There's the time. It's a lot more, starts your day off better than a bowl of cereal or a piece of toast, And it's not that much work. There we go. So it gets like the batter gets like a lot fluffier over time because it is just it's reacting with that vinegar just sitting there, and it's fluffing up over time. So what you don't want to do is after you're done mixing it, once you've got it mixed, just leave it. If you keep mixing it for whatever reason after the fact, you're just going to be knocking down those bubbles that are being formed. So you want to treat your batter gently after you finish mixing and you've started cooking your waffles. I didn't set a timer for this one because I'm forgetful. So let me do that. 1, 2, 3. Correct amount of time this time. Yeah, I think these strawberries are going to be good. They're pretty red. So what I'm going to do after I laboriously finish these is just toss a little bit of sugar onto them, which is going to deal with any deficiencies in sweetness that the strawberries might have, if they're out of season or if they weren't totally ripe. I think they're pretty good anyways. And I'll also hit them with a splash of lemon juice, which I think, cliche, but I think it just brightens up the flavor a lot when you add a little bit of lemon juice to a lot of fruits. Like I add a little lemon juice to my apple pies, I'll add it to strawberries, I'll add it to, like a smoothie. I think it just adds like a nice bright note. And it'll also make them your leftovers last longer in the fridge because having a little bit of acid in there is going to prevent some oxidation that's going to brown your fruit over time. Or like if you're, especially if you're making like an apple pie and you've got your apples prepped and you want them to be just sort of sitting there macerating in their own sugars and juices, always throw a little bit of lemon juice in there because you don't want your apples browning while you're waiting to finish your pie crust. Not that you would really notice, I think, after you cook it, but if you can avoid brown apples, that's the way to go. Keep your fruit looking fresh. Almost done. This is a nice bowl of strawberries. Okay, so then, there's my helper. There he is. What a good boy. I think he came to help me out with this strawberry. Here, let's put it over here so all the friends at home can see. Here you go, babe. All right, so I'm just gonna put in like a tablespoon, maybe like 2 tablespoons of sugar in here. And then I'm gonna grab my lemon juice. I like to have, if I see me cooking with fresh limes, I really like to cook with fresh limes and lemons. I think it makes a huge difference in the flavor of the juice. I think you can get bottled lemon juice that's not from concentrate, from like a more of a hippie provider. And those do taste pretty good, but I think still not quite as good as fresh. Right now, I just have this big bottle of from concentrate lemon juice, which is fine. I don't think I would make... I mean, it's fine, but this would be better with fresh lemons. Or like a little bit of lemon zest, which is underutilized, I feel. You can put lemon zest into a lot of stuff. Alright, so that's this waffle done. I'm just going to mix these up a bit. The sugar, when you put it onto the fruit, the sugar like wants to absorb water, and there's water in the fruit, so the sugar actually draws the like juice and moisture out of the fruit, and so once you add the sugar, it actually creates this like syrupy mix. Waffle iron's starting, probably needs a little bit more oil soon. And so I really like that when I make strawberries in the morning. Like if I mix it up and then sit for a few minutes, you get this like strawberry syrup that forms in the bowl, which is really good for your, I don't know, it's extra delicious on the waffles. I don't have pan spray. Normally you would want to pan spray this, but I haven't been buying pan spray because I feel like it's, nothing really against pan spray, but it is like extra packaging and it's like expensive. The oil, that you're just buying oil with the compressed air, and so you could just drizzle it on. So I've been trying to do that lately, and it's been working. Honestly, not as well as pan spray, but I'm making by anyways. I thought about getting an oil mister. They sell like these refillable things that just like you pump up this little pressure chamber and put whatever oil you want in there, and then you can like mist it out, or like just like a salad oil spritzer, if you've seen one of those. I'm thinking about getting one of those, but then I'd be buying like an item that's basically just for waffles. But maybe that's fun because I do make waffles pretty frequently. So I don't have a full waffle left, so I'm just sort of concentrating it in maybe half of the iron. That way it still cooks totally fine. I don't want to like spread it around too much because then you're going to have one waffle that's like really thin and crispy everywhere. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I just put in the last waffle, all the strawberries are done. Throw this in the sink, rinse off my knife, and there you have an easy home-baked breakfast that doesn't take too long at all. And we'll usually serve this up with some butter and some maple syrup too. So I'm gonna get like a final shot of this for everybody. So there we go. We've got our waffles, our strawberries, some maple syrup. Yeah, should be good. Thanks everybody. Have a good day.